Stop lying. The words cut sharper than the buzzing neon lights above the food court. You could hear forks clink against plates as people froze mid-bite, snapping toward the skinny black teenager, clutching a wrinkled receipt in one trembling hand. His school lanyard dangled from his neck, honor student, written clear as day. But none of that mattered to the man in uniform standing in front of him. "Kids like you," the officer sneered, leaning close enough for his badge to catch the glare. "You're always trying to scam a free phone. Nobody's wasting time checking cameras for your story." Darius swallowed hard. 14 top of his class, a kid who spent more time buried in science equations than TikTok dances, and here he was being paraded like a criminal in front of strangers. His eyes darted around, hoping for someone, anyone to step in. A mother clutched her children and steered them away. Another shopper pulled out her phone, not to help but to record. And then came the taunt that split Darius open. "What?" Officer Blake chuckled loud enough for half the mall to hear. "Your daddy gonna come fix this." "Oh wait, he's not around, is he?" The laugh echoed. Darius's jaw tightened, a single tear slipping despite his effort to stay composed. He thought of his father, Major Anthony Carter, a man whose very presence could silence a room, a man who spent years teaching his son patience, resilience, dignity. Blake didn't know that the father he mocked wasn't just around. He was on his way. Half an hour earlier, Darius had been hunched over a physics textbook, scribbling formulas into his notes app, a sandwich going cold beside him, and his phone buzzed and his father's face filled the screen, military profile photo, pressed uniform. "Mission schedule shifted, son. I'll be at the mall in about an hour. Thought we could grab dinner." "Perfect," Darius had smiled, eyes lighting up. He didn't know those words would become a lifeline. Minutes later, when he got up to toss his trash, his phone vanished. He saw two rowdy teens slip toward the exit, glancing back with that nervous guilt written all over them. He did the right thing, approached security. That's when Blake stepped in. And that's when everything turned upside down. "Empty your pockets," Blake barked, now slamming the demand across the table. Darius obeyed. Out spilled a notebook, calculator, his wallet, and that thick physics text, its pages crammed with scribbles most adults couldn't even follow. Blake flipped it open with mocking suspicion. "Pretty advanced for you." "Sure it's yours." "Yes, sir," Darius said evenly, voice carrying that calm he had practiced. "I'm in the accelerated program. Can we check the cameras, please?" The theft just happened. Blake smirked, slamming the book shut. "Nobody's wasting resources on your wild stories." Probably sold it for cash now, regretting it. The crowd murmured some pity, some judgment. Darius reached for his backup phone, tucked carefully in the hollowed middle of that same textbook, exactly where his father had told him to keep it. "I can call my dad," but Blake snatched it away. "Borrowed phone, huh? To call your imaginary Colonel Daddy." "Nice try." That drew laughter from the corner, a middle-aged woman with a designer purse clapping her approval. "I read about gangs like this," she said smugly. "They work in groups. One distracts, others steal." Blake nodded as if she testified in court. "Exactly. Classic scam." Darius's voice stayed level, but his heart thundered. "May I have your badge number, sir?" The officer leaned in, whisper low so only Darius could hear. "File a complaint if you want. Let's see where that gets you," then louder for everyone else. This kind of attitude is the problem with kids today. The humiliation was thick, heavy enough to choke on. But patience, that was the word echoing in Darius's head. His father's word. And then, like some cruel joke, his confiscated phone lit up in Blake's hand. Caller ID. "Dad, Major Carter." The military photo glaring back at everyone watching. Blake's smirk widened. He hit speaker. "Hello, Colonel. Your son's here causing trouble. What do you want me to do with him?" The voice that answered was calm, steady, dangerous in its restraint. "Who am I speaking with?" "Where is my son, Officer Blake Mall?" "Security," the cop said, puffing out his chest. "Your kid claims his phone was stolen. But we both know the truth. Kids like him make things up all the time." A pause, and then Major Carter's voice low and precise. My son doesn't lie. I'll be there in 10 minutes. The line went dead. Blake chuckled, waving the phone like a trophy. Yeah, right. Watch this colonel never show up. Seen this act 100 times. He shoved a form toward Darius. Sign it, admit you lied, or you're banned from the mall. Darius stared at the paper, his hand trembling as he picked up the pen. Around him, strangers' whispered phones recorded the mall buzzing with that electric blend of cruelty and curiosity. A tear slid down his cheek as he signed, knowing it was the only way to survive the moment. But his father was already inside. Major Carter moved through the secondary entrance, his duffel bag slung over one shoulder, eyes sharp as radar. Years in special forces had trained him to read anomalies, and the mall was full of them. Blocked hallways, nervous guards, security chatter, too rehearsed. Back at the desk, Darius spotted the same teens who'd taken his phone, now wandering bold as daylight across the corridor. He pointed quickly. Sir, those are the guys, right there. Blake didn't even glance. Now you're just making up suspects too. Pathetic. But Darius still had one card left. That backup phone had already sent a message, Reynolds badge number, humiliating me publicly. His father had it, and when Major Carter moved, things shifted. A piercing alert blared through the mall. Authority verification protocol activated. The kind of announcement nobody in civilian life had heard in years. Guards scrambled, radios crackled, shoppers froze. Blake's smirk faltered. Within minutes, men in suits with earpieces appeared at the main entrance, scanning IDs, locking down hallways. Screens flickered in the security office, and then the door burst open. There he was, Major Anthony Carter, Hall, broad-shouldered medals, shining against his uniform, filled the doorway like a force of nature. Two military police stood behind him. The mall owner trailed close, her expression a mix of fury and fear. Are you all right, son? Darius's voice cracked with relief. Yes, sir. Carter's eyes dropped to the red marks on his son's arm, fingerprints burned into the skin by Blake's grip. His jaw clenched, his voice steel. Only then did he look at the officer. Officer Blake, he said evenly, I've reviewed your treatment of my son over the past hour. Do you have anything to say for yourself? Blake stammered words, tripping. Sir, was a misunderstanding. I was following protocol. Carter raised a hand. Silence. He pulled out credentials that made the executive stiffen. I lead the Defense Department's Institutional Integrity Task Force. Every federal contract your company holds is under my authority. Screens lit up around them, footage complaints, years of buried cases. 17 racial profiling accusations. All dismissed, patterns too obvious to ignore. The mall owner shook her head. We're potentially liable for millions, she muttered. Blake's face drained of color. And just like that, his career ended. But this story didn't stop with one crooked officer. News outlets ran the footage nationwide. Lawsuits piled up. Entire corporations reeled under scrutiny. Darius, the boy who'd been mocked as a liar, was asked to join a new youth council to advise on security reforms. He said yes. He turned humiliation into strategy. Months later, that same mall looked different. Guards smiled instead of scowled. Teens weren't stalked, but greeted. The old security office had been replaced with glass walls and a sign that read, Collaboration creates safety. Even Blake showed up again, not in uniform, but in a suit, head lowered, working with reform teams trying to make amends. And one afternoon, Darius sat across from his father at a food court table, a chessboard between them. His acceptance letter to Georgetown lay tucked in his bag. Check, he said with a grin. Major Carter studied the board, pride softening his features. Well played, son, because it wasn't just a game. It was proof that patient strategy and the truth could win. But here's the question. Did Blake deserve that second chance? Or should men like him be shut out forever? Tell me what you think. Was redemption the right call? Or just another loophole for injustice? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if stories like this hit you where it matters, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who's seen or lived through the same. Because every voice yours included can turn humiliation into change.